Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's photography week in review roundup. How are you doing? It's Friday. We've made it this far. If that's the case, I got to mute something here. Hang on. I got to put this on mute. There we go. I'm in the chat, and I have to put myself on mute because I don't want any more weird audio issues than I normally get. But how's everyone doing? Hopefully everyone's is doing well. Like I said, I'm Jason Odell, and my Substack is The Photographer's Perspective, where I share my love of photography and education, and I try to make some of this blend the technical and the artistic together, and hopefully you guys are subscribed and hit that heart button if you like the content. I certainly appreciate the likes. Hey Juliana and hey PBJ, good to see you guys here in the chat. So not a tremendous amount of earth-shattering photography news this week. I was looking through the various sources that I have. So there's a few product things I'll talk about. I'll also talk about. I want to talk about some things that I've got coming up. Some stuff that I've been doing gear wise. Some new projects I've got coming up. Especially things right here on Substack. I've been, for everything. We've been having some fun times here. Substack is going through growing pains. There's glitchiness. I know that there's been some accounts that seem to have been disappearing. I don't know what's going on. I don't wish that on anyone. Um, but I've yet to find a suitable alternative, short of just trying to do stuff and, streaming to stream to YouTube or something like that. So if you're subscribing to me, I appreciate it. It means you're getting my articles, you get my live streams, and some more stuff that I'll talk about. What has been going on this week? Let me start with some product type of announcements, and I'm not going to try to do any screen sharing today. I always seem to get in trouble when I do screen sharing, so I'm just going to save that for some other adventures. I'm back from a week vacation that was much needed. For those of you who follow my personal page, I was on a Star Trek cruise and I got to meet William Shatner and Chekhov and more, and I had an amazing time to the point where I signed up for next year. So, what can I say? But what's been new? So, for some new lenses came out, and the first one. So more ways to spend the little money that we already don't have. But Nikon, interestingly enough, updated the 7200 f2.8 VRS lens for their Z mount lineups, or the Z lenses. And yes, it is more expensive. I'm looking at the retail right now. It's just about 3,200 US. That is not a minor expense, minor purchase. Hi, Courtney. Yeah, that was the Rocket Man video. If you haven't seen William Shatner performing Rocket Man in the original from 1974, I don't know if it was the Academy Awards, but it was an award show with the frilly tuxedo. Go dig that out on YouTube. I think it's in black and white even. And then you can go over to my page and watch the performance that he did on board the ship, where he, at almost 95 years old, had a full backing ensemble, and it was it was outstanding. If you're into that kind of thing, major geek alert. So yes, right out to you, Courtney. Um, so 7200 f2.8 VRS. So the S is Nikon's designation for their top end glass on the Z mount line. What's different? Well, the big difference here, because the first one, which I never owned, I got to mess with it, but it wasn't something that fit in my kit as a traveling photographer. I really didn't want a big, heavy 7200. I preferred to use a smaller a smaller aperture version. I had an f4 in f mount that was really nice. But this thing is quite nice. But the big difference here is that it's got 11 aperture blades, but more importantly than that, it shaves some weight off of the original. I'm going to see if I can pull up the original one um, as well, do a quick compare. You can do that on the B&H website, which is kind of cool. So there's the original one, which is still available at just under $2,900. Yeah, still expensive. And I think that's gone up because of, tariffs and stuff. I'm going to just pull up the quick comparison. Okay, so they're both, the same angle of view. They're both f2.8 lenses. They're both full frame coverage. The new one has a little bit closer focusing, so it's got a little bit better magnification. 70 to 200 millimeter lenses are rarely, you know, macro, but this one will get you to 1 to 3, which is pretty darn good, whereas the other one was 1 to 5, which isn't really close up at all unless you've got extension tubes. You can go check my video out on macro photography, my online class. The newer one actually has fewer elements, so that's one way they made it lighter. 11 aperture blades, so that's the aperture. The blades themselves are rounded. The more blades there are, the better circle that you get, and the generally better bokeh. The out of focus highlights get rendered more cleanly, nice circles. If you've got like holiday lights or something in the background that's out of focus, so that's quite nice. Good to see you out here, Kim. I see Daniel's here. And Jenny's here too. Great. I'm good to see you guys. So both autofocus lenses, both have tripod foot on them, but the original one weighed 1,360 grams, so 3 pounds. This new one is under a kilogram, 998, just under a kilogram. So that's 2.2 pounds if you do your conversion, or if you're good at going between metric and imperial units. But that's a lot. That's almost a third less weight to carry around. And if I've ever had a criticism of Nikon's glass, it's not the quality, it's not the optics, it's not the performance, it's the sheer size and weight of the stuff. So, who uses a lens like that? This is a bread and butter photojournalism lens, 70 to 200, pair it with a 24 to 70 or something like that. That's the classic. You can use it for sports, for some kinds of sports shooting. 2.8, you can do indoor sports with it. That's where this lens is going to shine. It's going to be fast autofocus, all that kind of good stuff. But it comes at a premium. It costs more now. And like I said, I think the original one was in the $2,500 range when it first came out several years ago. So we've seen this price creep, and unfortunately, that's just where we are when you start putting, import duties on everything. But I won't get into that. That's a different topic. I'm trying to keep things light today. We got enough crazy stuff, seemingly and just frustrating things going on in the world right now, right? So let's just talk about gear, because that makes us happy. All right, and then there were some Sigma lenses, and the Sigma lenses that came out. A whole bunch of new Sigma lenses actually came out. These are a 15 millimeter and a a 15 millimeter and a 35 millimeter Sigma lenses. Now, Sigma is a great third-party manufacturer. All of the third-party lenses these days are quite good. That wasn't always true in the past. You got Tamron, you got Sigma. They tend to be a little less expensive. They tend to fill niches that the manufacturers themselves maybe don't create, certain focal lengths, certain apertures. So what we got here from Sigma is a 35 millimeter f1.4 and a 15 millimeter, so that's very wide, f1.4. So a fast wide lens. And that one's APS-C. So that's the equivalent of a 24 millimeter 1.4 for APS-C shooters. So you can get them in a variety of mounts. Let me just take a quick look here at the mounts that you can get this one in. It's available in 3 different mounts. Canon RF mount. Again, this is for APS-C cameras, so 1.5 roughly crop. Fujifilm X mount and Sony E mount, so you can use it on those cameras that support those lenses. Whereas the 35 millimeter f1.4 is available in it's in Sony E mount, or no, it's in Leica L mount and Sony E mount. So those are your choices for that one. What about the price? So this lens, the 35 millimeter f1.4, um, comes in. It's just over $1,000, and the 15 millimeter one is $579. So much less expensive. What's the value of these? Bokeh, 30. Why, as lenses go wider, as focal lengths get shorter, your depth of field gets stronger. Your depth of focus becomes greater. So the backgrounds aren't rendered as soft, um, even for the same aperture between, say, a 50 millimeter lens and a 24 millimeter lens. The difference is quite apparent. So having a very fast prime lens means that you're going to get subject isolation. You might be able to do things that you wouldn't otherwise, get looks that you wouldn't otherwise get with a slower lens like a 2.8 or an f4. You also, I'm going to check out your comment here, John. I gotta go look at that for a second on the Arca Swiss Fit. I'll get back to that. So these fast lenses give you stuff that you can use. Most people talk about low light, and that's true. They're going to gather more light. You can shoot at faster shutter speeds without having to raise your ISO as high in dim conditions. But it's that depth of field or depth of focus that's really the key with these fast lenses. You can isolate your subject naturally. Okay, I'm going to go back to that Nikon and let's take a look here. The Nikon, the new one. Okay. Hey, now there you go. No kidding. A removable Arca Swiss compatible foot. Halla freaking Luya. Um, I've got a lens. This lens, my big Olympus OM system lens, has an Arca Swiss compatible foot. And what they're talking about, I don't know if you can see it on there. Probably not. There's this dovetail in here, this groove. And so if you have an Arca Swiss clamp style tripod head, which I swear by, and a lot of professional and enthusiast photographers swear by these Arca Swiss style um, clamps, because they're super easy to you don't have to screw anything. They don't twist. They're really the way to go. The fact that more manufacturers have not taken that up. So that feature right there probably saves you $150, if not more, on buying a replacement foot from a third party like Really Right Stuff or Kirk Photo or whoever makes these things. Now, that's not to say that they might not make a sturdier replacement. Those third party tripod feet are quite good. They're usually very robust. But seeing this is a new feature, and I'm surprised no one's done this, or more manufacturers haven't done this sooner. That is a fantastic, fantastic addition to that. Not saying it's worth going out and jumping out and spending the $3,100 on it. I'm just saying, like, that's about time we start to see this stuff. But yeah, it weighs almost a pound less. That's significant when you're underweight, carrying stuff in a backpack. Okay, so that's the new camera gear. Just for completion, just for rounding out the thing. If you're a digital photographer, you also need a computer. Okay, and Apple's got the newest MacBook line, um, which I would not recommend for a photographer, but they have a thing called a MacBook Neo, which doesn't run on their M series silicon. It runs on their A series silicon, which is used to power things like lower end iPhones and iPads and stuff. However, for someone who, you got a kiddo going to school and they want a Mac, you can now get a laptop for $599, which is pretty awesome. Um, but if you're going to, if you want a laptop for traveling and don't want to spend big bucks on a MacBook Pro. I mean, those are wonderful, but they get awfully expensive. They have all the bells and whistles on them. They also updated the MacBook Air to the new M5 chip. Now, my Star Wars, no, not my Star Wars people, my Star Trek people, my original series Star Trek people, if you're here, the M5 should creep you out a little bit because there's an episode in Star Trek, the original series, where the computer went haywire, and that computer was the M5 supercomputer from Daystrom himself. So little Star Trek humor for you. So I don't know if the M5 is the ultimate Mac, but it's it certainly is their top end chip right now. But by way of comparison, you can get a MacBook Air with a fair amount of memory and storage capacity for about $1,700, which if you are a serious photographer and you travel a lot, it's what I use. I mean, this is the M2 version here. I use this. It was actually about the same weight as my iPad Pro when I had a keyboard folio on it, and this does way more than that did. So I like a MacBook Air because it's not my primary computer. So MacBook Air gets M5 as well. So that's just some new products that have come out. Let's change gears, and I want to talk a little bit about now that we've got a whopping 17 people in the online. Hey, yay! Um, thank you. Thank you for joining this conversation this afternoon. Let's talk about what I've been up to in the publishing side because we've got a whole week to catch up on. So let me go back and find that. Where am I here? Let's see. Oops. I think I just undid something. Okay, hang on. Let's just do it the manual way. We'll go back to my Substack page because I have to remind myself what the heck I've been publishing this week. So the week started out. I How did we get here? Um, in case you missed it, on Monday I published an article that I called "Skip the Travel Tripod?" question mark, and that is some thoughts on the traveling that I've been doing since I switched to using OM system cameras, formerly Olympus. Um, and the article talks about some of the amazing improvements in image stabilization technology that we're seeing rolling out into mirrorless cameras pretty much across the board. And one thing is definitely true. They've all gotten better. And if you have a mirrorless camera that has in-body image stabilization, which is a feature I've talked about before, one of the things you ought to do is just take out whatever lens you use for your casual, especially indoor photography, even if it's not a fast lens, and just slowly lower your shutter speed and take practice shots to see just how slow you can get before things start getting blurry. And you might be surprised at just how long you can hand hold a shot. And I've gotten shots with my OM1 and OM1 Mark II cameras where if I'm leaning up against, say, a pillar or a column in a church, or a street, pole, street post, I can even hold that thing for almost 2 seconds and get a usable shot, which means you can do some motion blur stuff. Now, there are times when you're going to go longer than that, you need the tripod. But what I have found, if you read my article, is that it's getting less common for me to need the tripod on every shoot, at least for travel photography. If you're doing landscape photography and long exposure photography, you're going to still want a good tripod because there's some advantages that you can get. Namely, you can get longer exposure at your lowest ISOs. That's going to give you your cleanest shot, the best dynamic range, the best detail, because you don't have to do a lot of noise reduction. But for casual shooting or traveling, wow, you can do really well with just handheld stuff these days, including some scenarios that would have pretty much required a tripod back when I was shooting with a DSLR. So check that out. And I should mention as an aside, shameless self promotion, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be offering another photography class right here on Substack. And it is entitled Stretching Time, the Art of Long Exposure Photography. And it's my deep dive into all the ways you can use long exposures to unlock creative potential and also how to do it. So some practical tips on what is it that you actually have to do to capture long exposure photographs with your either your DSLR or your mirrorless camera. Hint, you will probably need a tripod. So that's tomorrow. And I should point out that, as I've said before, but I don't know how far this stuff gets out. If you're a subscriber, you can watch that Join My Class live for free. Okay, it's open to all people who subscribe to the Photographer's Perspective. So again, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you're unable to attend, I offer the replays at the paid subscription tier. And if you're in my highest tier, what I call the photo enthusiast tier subscription, I will send you the Zoom link so you can be there in real time with a less glitchy feed. Probably you can be in my chat in the real time as I restream it out to Substack for everyone else. So if that's something that interests you, head over to my after we're done today, you can head over to the my newsletter and subscribe for that. So thanks for everyone who's done that already. Actually, I do appreciate it. Okay, and then if you were following me, then you know that I gave a webinar on Monday as well on how to photograph the lunar eclipse, because we had a lunar eclipse very early Tuesday morning, and I went out and successfully photographed it. I talked about how I was pre-visualizing a certain shot from a certain location, given the I had done my homework on where the moon was going to be in the sky. So I had this vision for getting the moon over Pikes Peak here in Colorado Springs and our Garden of the Gods, the red rock formation that they call kissing camels because it looks like two camels are kissing. And I went out there and managed to get it. But to do it, I had to use a couple of little tricks in terms of capturing, because this was very, very dark. It was high ISO shooting and longish exposures. I had this, even at ISO 6400, I was running about a 5-second exposure. So if you go to my article on the moon that I published on the 3rd, you can see that photo. And then if you check out my little impromptu live, which has a replay that's open to everybody, that goes behind the shot, and I'll show you how I took those images and processed them both in Lightroom and then in Photoshop, because I needed to get 2 different exposures to capture that blood red orange moon that was happening. Thanks for joining, Courtney. Good to see you. Okay, and then today we have Car Week. So if you saw my show with Josh Weinberg a few weeks ago, he talked about Car Week, which starts now, and he's reposting anyone who shares a photo of a car, any kind, any type of photo of a car. He's resharing that, and he's also tagged up with Amanus3 Photography as the photo prompt of this week. So if you are subscribed to my newsletter, you can see my current post, which is an interesting shot that I captured several years ago now of the headlight and grille of a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air, aka the 57 Chevy. And they're ubiquitous at car shows. So one of the challenges you have as a photographer, you're going to take a picture of a 57 Chevy. How do you make it different? So what I chose to do was not only use a monochrome treatment, but I used a filter in the Nick collection, the Nick Color Effects plugin called Solarization. So you can check that out on my site. And then, in case you missed it, just some other upcoming news as we roll down through the show here. In addition to my live class tomorrow, I will be going live on another episode of Let's Click, my little photography. People call it a podcast. It's not really a podcast, but it's a video show. And I'm going to be, I've got a guest in studio tomorrow. And that is, let me pull that up so I get the time right. So my episode of Let's Click drops tomorrow, which is Saturday. And it's with Chuck Marshall. So that'll be at noon Eastern tomorrow. Let's Click with my special guest, Chuck Marshall. If you're not following Chuck, you'll want to check out his work because he does concert photography. And so he's really good at that as well. So he's got some wonderful shots of concert photography. And we'll be talking about that and sharing some of his photos. He's already sent me some, which is cool. And so that's just cool stuff. And I had my iPad disconnect, so I'm having all the fun today, aren't I? Let's see if I can reconnect this. Fun times in the world of tech. Okay, here we go. I was wanted to follow the chat in a different window. Okay, there we go. All right, so tomorrow, 10 a.m., Let's Click, or 10 a.m. my time. I'm in Mountain Time. Nobody knows where Mountain Time is. Noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. If you're in between there, you got to figure it out like the rest of us do. Let's Click photography talk with me. I'll be joined by Chuck Marshall. So very cool stuff. And then I should also point out that I've been doing a collaboration in a different space with a different Substack with our good friend Neurodivergent Hodgepodge. And we have a program that we're doing couple of times a month called the Misfits Muse. And the Misfits Muse is a new Substack. You can search for it and subscribe. But we are going live with a follower, someone I follow here on Substack, Tamara Casey. And Tamara's a musician. She's out there and is a self-published musician, writes her own music and does the whole thing. And we're going to be talking about her stuff. The Misfits Muse program that we've come up with is a space, casual conversation space for artists of all stripes. So you don't have to be just a visual artist, you can be a musician, you can be a creative writer, whatever it is. We're looking forward to having more guests on that show as we go forward. So where does that bring me? Well, I am starting to pack for a trip to Spain and Portugal. A week from Monday, I'll be leaving. So I'm going to be out of pocket. I might be able to jump in a few times depending on if I've got decent Wi-Fi. But I wanted to talk about a new bag that I got. Back in October, before I went to Chicago, I mentioned a new release photo backpack from one of my favorite companies. I've been buying their stuff since 2006, I think. 2005 maybe. Think Tank Photo. And they make just wonderful things. A variety of bags, and they came out with a new line of bags called the Focus Point series, they're roll top bags. And I purchased one. They come in two sizes. And I purchased the smaller one because the capacity was, I think it was 20, they have a 22 liter and maybe um, uh, like a 30 liter or 26 liter, something like that. Let me go look it up here for a second. Think Tank Photo. And the Focus Point roll top comes in two sizes. So yeah, a 22 liter and a 30 liter. Now that size is a little misleading because I have a Think Tank backpack that's 18 liters and it holds darn near everything I can put in it, including my laptop. Okay, so I bought the 22 liter one, and and I love it. It's a great bag. It had one small issue for me, and that is it's pretty thin. It's not thick. Okay, which is a great thing for putting under the seat of the airplane. Okay. And it has this roll top feature, so you can put extra goodies in there. A change of clothes, or a toiletry kit, or whatever. And it has room for a laptop and more. But it was a little bit short. It was just a little bit shallow. And what that meant was that I had lenses that had to go in on their side instead of on edge. And so what it translates to from a practical standpoint is I couldn't fit quite as much gear in the photo compartment that I wanted to compared to a deeper bag. So there's trade-offs. So I ordered the 30 liter bag, and I got it a while back, and I have it here. So here is the 30 liter bag. I'll back up a second, show this. Okay, so it's still pretty thin. It's just maybe a half an inch taller. But that extra height, that extra thickness makes all the difference. It's still a pretty slim bag. Okay, this is not a big, deep bag. And I'll open it up for you. So there's a front compartment here. I'll put a link to this in the when I post this replay. I still have the instruction manual inside. So there's a front compartment with some zippered compartments where you can put small things like just odds and ends, batteries, or memory cards, or whatever you want. Maybe even things that are thin. And then there's this roll top compartment which has this cool latch. So this expands and has this magnetic compartmental closure. So you can fill this right up with a lot of goodies. And then inside here, protected, is also a slot for, I think, at least a 14-inch laptop. It might be larger. I have to go back and look and see if this is just the catalog. So anyway, I'll have to get those specs, but I'll put a link to this in the replay. And then, of course, the important compartment, reclasp this. The important compartment is from the back. Okay, so opening in the back. And I really have to say, I like camera bags that open from the back. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that if you take the bag off and you have to put it down on something, like on the ground or on a beach or sand, you're not putting the bag that touches your, that interfaces with your back in the muddy or dirty conditions. So that's kind of cool. And then the other reason I like these is because they're just more secure. Someone's not going to walk up and just open the back. They're not going to be able to get that. And that can be important when you're traveling to places like Barcelona or where I happen to be going. So in the back here, I've got this compartment, and it's filled with most likely what I'm taking to Spain. I haven't fully set that up yet. I'm getting myself tangled here. So what do I have in here? And I still have extra space. I haven't decided. But I've got my OM1 Mark II camera with a L bracket attached to it, and the Olympus 12-100 lens. So this is a 24-200 equivalent f4. So that fits in there. I've also got my super wide lens right in here, my 8-25 millimeter f4, so a 16-50 millimeter equivalent. I've got some extra batteries. I've got a camera strap. I've got a filter pouch of 72 millimeter filters. I got neutral density filters, 10 stop, 15 stop. Tune in tomorrow to find out how I use those filters for long exposures. I've also got a polarizer. And then just for fun, because I had space, because you always pack when you have space, I've got the diminutive 25 millimeter f1.8. So this is a 50 millimeter prime equivalent, fast prime. Why do we have a fast prime? If you tune in today, right, it's bokeh. It's for isolating subjects and having shallower depth of field. And this is super tiny and light. And then just for giggles, I also have a manual focus fisheye lens. This is one made by Rokinon, but there's a equivalent made by Samyang. I think they all came out of the same factory in Korea. It's a manual focus fisheye lens, so it has I think it has a 180 degree or 170 degree angle of view. So you can get some crazy wide shots when you're traveling. It provides for a unique perspective, no pun intended. It's very cool. And I even have an extra slot. So haven't decided what else is going in there. And then I have some memory card wallet tucked in here. So very compact. So this will be coming with me on the plane to Spain. The plane to Spain. Hopefully it will not rain in Spain. Other things on this bag, though, it's got a pocket here on each side for like a water bottle or something to slide in there. And then it has a side opening so you can access your camera from the side. So if you wanted to do that, very cool. So again, this is the Think Tank Focus Point Roll Top 30L. Like I said, the 22L is quite nice, but if you've got larger lenses, you can fit them a little bit better in the 30-liter bag. And the nice part about it is because it's a roll top, you're not dealing with the, you don't have the problem of having a giant bag. If you're not putting stuff in the top compartment or if you're taking things out of it, it's like when you get to where you're going. Like let's say I put, my toothbrush and a change of clothes or something in the top for my flight. Well, once I'm in the hotel, that comes out and I roll the bag down and now it's compact. So it's a very clever and it's a very recently a much more popular design. There's a lot of other companies that are also making roll top bags. They're great for shooting in urban environments or travel photography. So if you don't have a big kit, it would be a little bit tricky to fit a full-size DSLR in this bag. You're not going to put a Nikon Z9 in this bag. Even a Z8 might be a little bit tall, but a Sony, a Fuji, OM system cameras, or the smaller crop sensor cameras, boy, this bag is just gonna eat that gear up, and you'll be all set. So that's what I have been up to. We have a little time. If anyone has a question for me in the chat, just feel free to type something out. I know that this is but this is your time, and it's Friday. Thinking what else? But yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe because then you will get access to my live classes. So just reminding everyone, live class tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Long exposure photography. And I'll also be going live Saturday morning with my special guest, Chuck Marshall, for Let's Click Photography Talk. And then on Sunday, you can tune in at noon Eastern for the Misfits Muse. I'll be joined by my co-host, Neurodivergent Hodgepodge, along with our guest, Tamara Casey. It's very casual and hopefully stuff that can take your mind off of everything else that's going on in the universe right now. So I want to thank everyone again for coming. You guys are awesome for tuning in. We got 20 people. That's very, very good for something last second. Thank you again for joining. I will be looking forward to hearing from you and hopefully see some of you tomorrow in my live sessions here on Substack. So until next time, do me a favor, hit the hearts before you leave, and I will see you real soon. Thanks, everyone.